A lot of discernment here in this hour as Mike Haridopolos joins us for the hour. And Mike, I'm in a bit of a conundrum. I need help from my congressman. Do I introduce you as congressman or husband of the Surgeon General?
Well, more and more people say, I know you. You're Stephanie's husband. Great to meet you.
Well, congratulations to Stephanie on that officially now being the Surgeon General until they can get somebody confirmed. She's been working over there a while, right?
Well, as you know, she's been working with the Health and Human Services with RFK Jr. since February of last year. They, of course, found out about her amazing medical credentials. Of course, she was the head of Florida Healthy Kids before that on the Board of Medicine. And I think people really want a general practitioner doctor to be kind of the voice for healthcare because they understand, whether it be newborns or senior citizens, that she understands healthcare and really does a great job of articulating some of the things we're looking to do to improve what we eat and how we sleep. And for that matter, even screen time for kids because they're spending way too much time on the internet.
Boy, we've done a lot of talking about that here and on the Florida Roundtable as well, and where this society is going communication-wise. It's amazing. You and I doing this by video conference, watching each other while we talk, because that way when we run out of time, I can give you the helicopter and we got to quit. But these kids are absorbing information faster, and a lot of it things they're not age-appropriate ready for.
No, it's very true. And look, the brain doesn't really get fully developed till you're 25 years old. And so as you're constantly spending that time on screen time, you're not out there living life.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what, as a kid, I remember those good old times. And it's an amazing tool. And remember, this technology is via space, by the way, because of the incredible space industry. But with the pros come the cons. And this is what we want to keep parents aware of and make sure that moms and dads can make the best decision possible.
Yeah. And education is a big part of that. We go back to seatbelt laws and those kind of things where I think the most effective thing when it came to seatbelts didn't have to do with there's a potential for a policeman writing me a ticket. I've written a few of those tickets in my days, but more effective were the crash test dummies and the PSAs that were out there educating the public about, look, this is going to keep you in the car. If you're ejected, you don't have much of a chance of surviving. If you stay in the car, it's going to be better off for you. And I think we largely bought that without the tickets being in play.
I agree. Visual learning and seeing the consequences of bad decisions.
Yeah, exactly right. Mike Haridopolos with us for the hour, and we continue in just 60 seconds. This is Bill Mick Live. Representative Mike Haridopolos with us. We were talking about technology a moment ago. You can follow WMMB on Instagram through space at WMMB Radio. Mike, let's get into the realm where you have operated so long and so well for so long, the political world. And we saw some changes on Tuesday. It's going to change the makeup of Congress. It's going to change potentially the majorities for Republicans. There are indications they could grow, as opposed to we were worried recently about losing majorities in both houses of Congress. How did you look at Tuesday, and what do you see happening there?
Well, first I'll talk about Tuesday. Of course, the results, I guess a lot of people called me about Thomas Massey. I candidly did not get to know him well in the Congress. We didn't serve in any committees together. But I think the reason he lost is not so much the personal feud with Donald Trump. It was more the idea that Republicans expected their congressman to vote for border security, eliminating tax on tips and overtime and reducing taxes on Social Security. And Thomas Massey voted against that big bill back in July. And then more recently, he came out against what we call reconciliation. That's where we were trying to rein in spending. And so he kind of lost his way in Washington, fell in love with the treatment the press was giving him. And the voters said, you know what? We're going to replace you with a person who is not necessarily a Trump loyalist. It's a person who is actually backs up what they talked about in the campaign. And I think that's why he'll be an ex-congressman come January.
Well, and you've got Ed Gallarain, who a former Navy SEAL who won that Republican primary. I haven't seen much about his Democratic opponent in Kentucky, but he's got the Trump endorsement. Didn't seem to matter in the Florida special elections that we held a little while back, and Republicans not carrying the message there. How do you think this bodes across the country after we see results from Tuesday?
Well, I think across Tuesday, Republicans have delivered on a lot of their promises. As I said, border security, reducing taxes, stopping the largest tax increase in American history. But the thing we're all struggling with right now is gas prices. No doubt about it. With this conflict with Iran, which has been, of course, a conflict with the United States since 1979, all presidents, Republican and Democrat, agree that Iran is an evil empire. Remember, these folks have killed 60,000 of their own people to show you that kind of hatred they have for their own people. And of course, they're even shooting at their own neighbors. I mean, isn't it amazing that every Islamic country around Iran is siding with Israel and the United States? It shows how bad an actor Iran is. But this is a tough one for all of us. And I know these gas prices are rough, but we really hope that once we solve this problem, hopefully quickly, we'll see gas prices come down just like they did throughout 2025.
I want to get there in a little bit and talk some more about Iran and what's going on over there. I want to stay in the political realm just a minute or two. Redistricting passed in Florida. It's been signed by the governor. There's a lawsuit that's been challenged. The judge in Leon County heard the case on Friday about an injunction putting these new districts in play, but he has not come up with a decision or announced when he's going to have a decision. You're a candidate in this upcoming election. Your district could change. And are you hearing anything at all yet about what your district's going to be?
Well, candidly, I stay completely out of this whole reapportionment deal. I can't influence it. It's a state decision. As you know, Ron DeSantis pushed it forward. The legislature passed it. All I can do is my job. And so that's what I've been focused on. As you know, Bill, the district is anchored in Brevard County, whether it be the new or the old district. About 80% of the district is Brevard County. Mm-hmm. We'll either lose Indian River County or gain, in that case, the eastern part of Orange County. But all I can do is my job. And that's what I try to do every day. I am optimistic as a Republican. It looks like there might be some more chances to pick up some seats, just like the Democrats. As you know, in New England, there's not a single Republican seat. And if you've ever seen the map in Illinois, it looks like a Rorschach test. I mean, it does not look like a logical thing. Whereas you look at the maps, whether it be the old or the new, we actually keep counties and cities together for the most part, and I think that's a good thing.
That's one of the allegations from the lawsuit is that it violates the Fair District Amendment that we implemented back in 2010. I like the Fair District Amendment. I think it was a wise thing to do, as you pointed out, keeping counties and cities together, communities of like interest being key, and not racially or politically gerrymandering, although it looks like this is a political gerrymander from the beginning here. And I think that we're open to that criticism for having done so. Does your strategy change at all if you're having to campaign in East Orange County now as opposed to in Indian River County? Different kind of voter over there potentially.
Well, I think the district comes a little bit bluer. I think I won 63% back in 2024, maybe a tad less. And I think the district changed a little bit to the left, where I should win around 60, 61 if normal things happen. But look, the best thing I can do is say, this is what I'm going to campaign on, and this is how I'm going to actually serve in office. Mm-hmm. And, as you and I have talked about many times, Bill, I said that, look, we secure the border. I said we'd stop the largest tax increase first and foremost. Then, of course, we provide a tax relief for what would be child tax credit, overtime, tips, Social Security. And then I think the thing we're proudest of, whether it be East Orlando or Indian River County, the space industry is booming right now.
Absolutely.
We are doing all the right things. These amazing jobs are being created for our kids that were not available when you and I were younger. And it really says a lot about where our economy is going. And so we really delivered there, especially as the chairman of the committee. I can really drive what we do there in space. And what a spectacular sight Artemis II was just a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
America at its finest.
I talked with Jim Banke yesterday for this weekend's Florida Roundtable, and we extensively talked about Artemis II and then where we're going from there and all the advances there. Jim's always a great guest, so knowledgeable about space and what's going on there. Look forward to it this weekend on the Roundtable. But as these redistricting things and these Tuesday elections, not just the House, but we saw some senators that lost primary elections. Is that going to bode well for dealing with the Senate? What's it mean for the Republican message carrying through, Mike, or does it?
Well, as you know, Bill, it's already been a big challenge with the Senate. Because of their rules, they need 60 votes to pass legislation. And the Democrats, as you know, have basically said, we're not going to do anything. And so those of us in the House have been very frustrated. For example, we've passed the SAVE Act. That's the common sense idea where only Americans vote in American elections. And of course, the idea that you have to show an ID, which 13 states don't require in order to be eligible to vote. And so we passed that over and over. We've passed, of course, the bill to fully fund Homeland Security. The Senate still hasn't done that. It's incredibly frustrating, but I go back to what we just spoke about, Bill, which is this. My job is to do my job. I can't control what happens in the Senate. I do have some great friends there, but Democrats need to come on board in order to get things done. I can say that we've done a really good job on the housing bill. That's going to be a bipartisan bill passed. And I can also say, of course, the space bill that we passed in the House will also be a bipartisan bill. But we need to come together, especially on Homeland Security, because we are under siege with the 10 million illegals that came in. And, of course, we're in a conflict with Iran. You never know how many sleeper cells are out there. And we need the people to be paid for the good work they do to protect our country.
A lot of ground to cover with Representative Mike Haridopolos. We'll continue that in moments here on WMMB. Want to get back to Iran. Want to talk about Ukraine. We're not hearing much about that. Mike, you've mentioned space. I want to get back to that. You also brought a big funding boost to the port here last week. What that's about and more as we continue with Mike Haridopolos on this Thursday edition of Bill Mick Live right here on 92.7 FM WMMB.
This is Bill Mick Live. Reality lives here.
And the reality now is, in an hour brought to you by Renewal by Anderson, that Mike Haridopolos is our congressman in District 8, and he's spending the hour with us here on Bill Mick Live. Mike, I really appreciate you taking the time, and we were just talking briefly in the break, and maybe appropriate for us to note your predecessor, Bill Posey, passed away just a couple of weeks ago, and so sad to see Bill go. I know he was a mentor of yours and just a quality individual. We miss him terribly.
I can't express words enough to talk about just the friendship that we had, and what always marked Bill Posey to me was just this amazing relationship he had with his wife Katie.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they were inseparable, high school sweethearts. And Bill Posey didn't care about the limelight, being on TV. He just wanted to solve problems. I mean, he was just that kind of guy. If you had a problem, you'd call Bill and he'd solve it. I mean, remember, he solved the election problem after the 2000 elections, and he was the tip of the spear after we lost the shuttle program. That was Bill Posey, bringing these commercial ventures in and working with guys like me on the state level. But Bill was just a quality guy. He always gave people respect and would listen to everybody. But even though he went to Washington for, 16 years, his heart never left Brevard.
Yeah, that's very true. You know, one of the things I'm grateful for, and I appreciate, like you, Bill was willing to come on here, talk about the things going on in the country, in the world. But what I really appreciated was that 10 or 15 minutes out behind the studio when the show was over, like you and I will do when you're here in town, and spend some time just talking without the microphones about, hey, what's going on? What are the insights that maybe can't be public, but what's going on that makes a difference here? And Bill was a guy who truly wanted to make and be that difference, and he did it in so many ways. Made reforms in the Florida legislature, and then tried to carry those reforms into Congress. They still haven't gotten the idea of one subject, one bill, but maybe someday we get there.
And more transparency. That's one of my big pushes, is that Bill was always pushing for. We do it, of course, in Florida. Rick Scott and I are doing that same thing here, and we're trying to bring more of Florida up to Washington. I think it's a great thing. It's a great legacy of Bill Posey.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Let's get back into the business of the country, and I'm a little, I can't say surprised, but I'm a little disturbed that we are as impatient as we are with what's going on with Iran. And yes, we're paying more at the pump. We're paying more for other things. It's impacting the economy a little bit. That has the potential naturally to impact elections in November, but this has not been a long thing yet. What are you hearing? What are you seeing regarding our relationships over there? They seem to be strengthened in the Middle East, as you mentioned earlier, with these other Islamic nations that are saying, these people are out of control. We're on the coalition side here. We got to stop the nonsense.
Well, again, as a historian, let me just walk you through as an old teacher, just kind of what my mindset is.
Okay.
My entire lifetime, 1979, Iran has been run by, basically put it, and they're showing it again today, people who are literally insane. I mean, these are crazy people who are willing to kill their own citizens. And as I said, at least 60,000 Iranians have been killed by their own government this year alone.
Wow.
And so this is what's going on. And then they're now shooting indiscriminately at their Arab neighbors. You see the shots at UAE, etc. It's just out of control. But they're very hard to defeat because they're willing to take this pain. And remember, the people who oppose them in their own country don't have the Second Amendment. So the government has weapons, and thus they keep them in check. That said, what we are optimistic is that we can, of course, take Iran out of this ability to get a nuclear weapon. Marco Rubio is maybe the most articulate man in politics today. And he said, look, if we did nothing, they'd be able to create a conventional shield so they can start developing a nuclear weapon again. And maybe the most eye-opening thing to me was the fact that they showed that they can fire a ballistic missile more than 2,000 miles away. Mm-hmm. So if they get that nuclear, even if it's a crude one, and they put it on that ballistic missile, they can hit major cities in Europe, let alone our major military base in the Indian Ocean. This is a nation that funds terrorism. And finally, Barack Obama, to his credit, tried to work out a deal back in 2015 by giving them a lot of money and, of course, letting them back into the international community. And what did they do with that money? They continued to oppress their own people, and they funded Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, all of those terrorist organizations in the Middle East.
Mm-hmm. Just this week, the president announced, hey, we were going to hit them tomorrow. We've decided to hold off because we think we're making progress in talking to the right people who can make a deal happen. Are you getting any barometer on a level of confidence about how this is going to go?
You know, candidly, I don't have the insight for that. Of course, the president is dealing with every day, as you can imagine.
Sure.
But one problem we have, Bill, is that we're not exactly sure who really runs the country. Mm-hmm. Remember, we took out all of their top leadership, and so we do not exactly know who we're cutting a deal with. And what the Iranians have done, again, since 1979, is they have bluffed and lied consistently. Right. So think about any kind of deal you're trying to cut business-wise or even personal-wise, and a person tells you something right to your face and lies to you. And then they turn around and do the exact opposite. That's the regime you're dealing with. And so the president's going to have to make a tough call. I think he's probably going to have to come in with even more military might to make him say uncle, because we can't afford to close down a major strait like the Strait of Hormuz and thus undercut all of the economic gains we have made, and let alone disrupt the worldwide economy.
Is the feeling that these other Middle Eastern nations are behind such a move at this point? Should it come down to that?
Yeah, I actually think these Middle Eastern nations, I get the sense that they want to move on Iran. Remember, their nations are the ones receiving direct fire at hotels, and they're not hitting military facilities. And then these drones can knock out their ability to acquire wealth. Remember, UAE, Saudi, and so forth, they're wealthy countries because of oil. One $50,000 drone could knock out billions of dollars worth of crude oil, etc., that goes throughout the world.
Yeah, very true. Let's move on. Something we haven't heard a lot about in the news in recent weeks, mainly because of Iran and what's going on there, is what's happening in Ukraine. You got any update on what's happening over there?
Yeah, just to give your listeners some feeling, right now Russia controls about 20% of Ukrainian land. That started, of course, back in 2022. The Ukrainians are fighting back. They do have the weapons of war. They're actually using drones and so forth now against the Russians. The scariest part about what's happening in the Ukraine right now is that the Russians are running kind of nuclear military drills. Putin, again, talking out of both sides of his mouth, while he's doing nuclear drills, he's also saying that we're getting close to a peace deal. It's just very schizophrenic there, and it's challenging, and it's the reason why I think NATO needs to step up and do more. They don't spend anywhere near what we spend. Mm-hmm. I recently voted to say no to giving NATO more money because NATO hasn't stepped up and done its part. And so I think that's the balance we need to strike. We've helped them incredibly. We depleted a lot of our supply chain, as you know, to help them going back to 2022. But the European countries need to step up and help their neighbor. And remember, the NATO countries didn't even let us fly over their nation when we were hitting Iran. And I think that's unacceptable given our relationship.
Very true. Mike, I got to take a minute, remind everybody, Renewal by Andersen is this hour's sponsor of the program. They've got a special running throughout May that gives you the choice. You have the option of 20% off your entire window and door project or 24 months of special financing. That would include no money down, no payments, and no interest for 2 full years. Now, terms and conditions apply. You can see those, but even more importantly, schedule your free in-home consultation at bestwindowsflorida.com. These are engineered for the Space Coast. They are built specifically for your home. They customize them with that in-home consultation, whether it's color and style on the inside and outside, the special features that come, and they bring you hurricane rated for your zip code in your home, impact resistant, energy efficient, saving you money on your cooling bills, and they reduce noise, giving you that perfect indoor environment. It is peace of mind you get with Renewal by Andersen and those that claim impact windows and their patio doors. BestWindowsFlorida.com. License number is CGC 1527613. We'll be back to close it up with Representative Mike Haridopolos on this Thursday morning when we continue in moments right here on WMMB. We've still got to talk space, the port, and spending packages and the like. We're going to see where it's going with Mike Haridopolos next.
Call Bill now, 321-768-1240.
Renewal by Andersen, the hour's sponsor. Congressman Mike Haridopolos with us to close out our Thursday. Mike, we were talking Ukraine and the vote you had made there about NATO and their responsibility. You did note, though, that those NATO countries are coming around on what's going on with Iran and the Strait of Hormuz there. They are probably more directly impacted on a lot of this than we are, yet we are still seeing Americans frustrated over gas prices, and understandably so. I'm seeing wild fluctuations from 407 one day, 419, 459, and up and down again. What are you seeing in all of this as that is all coming together again?
Well, this is beyond frustrating for all of us. I mean, it's horrible that we have to pay that much for gasoline because of the actions happening in Iran. They're in essence holding the rest of the world hostage, and we can't allow this to happen for the simple reason there's not just the Strait of Hormuz, but there's probably 12 different locations around the world that if you clog up one of those sea lanes, you're going to see prices go up. So you can't allow this to happen in general. That said, I mean, let's go back kind of a history lesson again. Back in 2013, when President Obama was in office, a price per barrel adjusted for inflation was $147. Joe Biden, of course, when the Ukraine war began, got us about $150 a barrel, based on inflation. So these are realities that we're facing. We hope that by taking this decisive action once and for all, we'll have more stability in the Middle East as you take out the major terrorist actor. And the other good news is, of course, we're producing a heck of a lot more oil than we used to. We're opening up those oil leases. And remember, the Venezuelan oil is going to start coming online in a major way as they modernize that area. And even more than the Middle East, Venezuela has the most oil still to, of course, extract. So there's some opportunities here. We hope this is an aberration. We can bring this for a landing. But as you mentioned, China, Japan, and India are actually more dependent on not just oil, but fertilizer from that region.
Very true. You mentioned production, and did I hear correctly we are finally building new refineries or retooling refineries here in the U.S.?
We are, and we needed to. And just like we need to, of course, start using fracking, just like we need to, again, extract more oil out of Venezuela, use our own, of course, plentiful resources that are found. We're not going to drill off the coast of Florida, put everyone at rest on that. But there's other states that want to do this, and we should allow them to do it because the way you reduce oil prices is if you increase supply of oil. And that's exactly what we're doing. And then if people want to drive electric cars, that's their choice. But we should not mandate that or give advantages to one over the other. So that's the balance we're trying to strike. And finally, one thing, Bill, remember, electricity doesn't come out of the wall.
Yeah.
They produce it in energy plants. And that's coal, that's natural gas, that's all gasoline in some cases. So it's a complex web, and we're feeling the brunt of it right now. And I do hope, like you said, that with NATO, if they come on board, we can put even more pressure on Iran to end this terrible conflict and have them stop funding terrorist activities in that region, let alone the world.
Speaking of energy, Representative Monique Miller had forwarded and pushed through the Florida House the modular nuclear bill that would allow these small nuclear plants to fund things or to provide energy for things like these AI data centers, and eventually would support the power grid and maybe more reliably than anything else we've done. Anything that can be done to help from the federal level there to get that through?
Yeah, we're definitely moving in that direction. We're a long way away from 3 Mile Island and that tragedy and that issue, let alone Chernobyl. And remember, they use nuclear power all over the world, let alone on nuclear submarines, which of course our sailors are next to.
Yeah.
And it's something we have hardest. We have to be smart with it. But eventually, we're going to put nuclear power on the moon. I mean, this is a technology we need because, as you know, Bill, these AI data centers need a lot of energy, about 9 times more than conventional places, and we're gonna do this in a smart way, and I'm glad to see there's a lot of bipartisan support for that.
Yeah, very good. Mike Haridopolos with us. We continue and wrap up our Thursday in just 60 seconds right here on WMMB. Representative Mike Haridopolos is with us. Mike, you were talking those various shipping channels and the like earlier. We've got it seems to bounce back and forth between 1 and 2. We got the busiest passenger port in the country here in Brevard County. You were just down last week. They got a major grant that's going to help them out with things there.
Yeah, it's really important that I deliver for our community. And one of those areas we can do is really improve one of the economic engines in our community, that being the port. It's not just, as you mentioned perfectly, we're one of the leading cruise industries. We're also, of course, moving a lot of materials through there, whether it be salt, lumber, and, of course, energy. And so we were able to secure over $20 million. Debbie Mayfield, myself, Tom Wright, and, of course, Monique Miller, the whole gang in the State House worked on this, where we got in total around $37 million to continue that. And the number one thing we will do is making sure that Central Florida has the energy it needs to operate and grow this economy. Remember, during Hurricane Milton, when other parts of the state were knocked out, it was Port Canaveral that stepped up and got the energy to the gas pumps we needed so we didn't have a crisis. Mm-hmm. That's the kind of long-term thinking we need, to not think short-term, think long-term. And the port is a vital economic engine, and I'm proud to come back and bring those dollars home so we can continue to grow not just the economy, but the jobs in our region as well.
Well, Mike, you serve as the chairman of the subcommittee on space there in the House, and space is huge, bringing a lot of jobs and a lot of innovation. We're going to talk again about it with Jim Banky this weekend on the Florida Roundtable here on WMMB. But that is just, it seems to be the future of this county and in many ways, future of the world.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I remember just a few years ago when Barack Obama killed the shuttle program, we didn't know what would happen. We thought we'd be in another post-Apollo time period where there'd be a big economic downturn. But we made the investment to incentivize commercial space, and look what's happening now. As Jim Banky will tell you better than I, and you have these great conversations, Bill, you have a situation where you have major companies coming in here, hiring thousands of Floridians to do incredible work. And as you know, in a couple of years, NASA's going to put another astronaut on the moon, and we're going to have a moon base. But almost every 2 or 3 days, SpaceX is launching. Starship is coming our way. And these are the jobs of the future. And it's the reason why we're making investments in our high schools so that kids, if you choose not to go off to college, can still get high-paying jobs, blue-collar jobs for that matter, in our backyard. You don't have to leave the community anymore. And this economic engine is not just for, of course, tourism or the idea of adventure. It's national security as well, because we face this threat from the Chinese. And I could not be more proud to be the chairman of this committee. And for those people who don't know, this is one of the areas where we work in a really strong bipartisan way. I just put out bill just a couple of days ago to emphasize the need for commercial space, and it was my co-sponsor's a Democrat out of California. I mean, this is how you get things done. And in politics, it's not about always Republican versus Democrat. There's a lot of bipartisan issues that we can work on. We proved that with the housing bill we just passed yesterday. We're doing it with space program, and we're going to try to do the same thing with AI, because we need to win this AI race against China.
Yeah, we've talked about that on the round table as well. Let's get a quick phone call in for you. Mike, line 1, you're up on Bill Mick Live. Good morning.
Hey, good morning. This is Keith from Palm Bay.
Yeah, Keith.
Congratulations on your wife this morning. I seen her on Fox, and I seen you on CNN yesterday, and now I'm hearing you on the radio this morning. But you guys are
it's
a busy
wild.
family.
It's Haridopolos week, right? Right?
Yeah. I got one main question.
Sure.
You guys got a committee, a group, or what to try to codify these laws that President Trump did to close the borders? Because come hell or high water, if a Democrat gets back in there in 28, that's all back open.
It's a good question.
Okay.
Keith, Mike, go ahead.
100%. Look, one of the reasons why President Trump was reelected president was the simple fact that people were tired of the border shenanigans. Now even the Democrats admit that they made a mistake. We put in the big bill last summer the resources necessary. We're about to pass the new bill probably tomorrow morning to make sure the funding continues to stay there. The only thing holding us up at this point is the fact that the Senate needs 60 votes. And that's the frustration. Look, I'm a history teacher, as you know, Keith. The filibuster was designed to delay votes, not completely stop votes. Because when you stop votes in the Senate, you're denying the verdict of the election of the people. And so we're hopeful that somehow we can get these things codified, all of them, not just part of them. But if the good news, Keith, is, as you know, the border is secured. Almost 3 million people have been booted out of this country or left on their own. And we're working every single day to get after what we call the worst of the worst offenders, those people who committed rape, murder, other sexual acts off the street, especially in those sanctuary cities, which are way too prevalent across our country today.
Mike, as we look at that, and yeah, the border is better controlled, it goes back to the question we were talking earlier, part of it having to do with Republican messaging. And will John Thune take leadership in the Senate and say, okay, filibuster's fine, but you're going to talk every minute of it. Let's get you back to doing a real one.
Well, again, I'm not in the Senate, but I would say if I was a Senate leader like I used to be back in Tallahassee, I would say, look, you guys want to filibuster? Let's go, buddy. Let's talk it out and make you hold the floor and defend a bad position. I mean, again, the fundamental responsibility of government is to protect life and property, and they are failing to do so. And again, this is not some myth. You can go to wow.dhs.gov, and it'll show you all the people who came here illegally in the first place and then broke the law once here. We need to take those people off the streets. Fortunately, we have guys like Wayne Ivey in our community who do that every day, but a lot of sanctuary cities let these people back on the streets, and you've seen some of the horrific crimes that followed.
Yeah, that's very, very true. As you look ahead, you mentioned some legislation that you're looking at to pass maybe even tomorrow. What else is on tap for you as we look out a week or two ahead here?
Well, where we're at, one is we're gonna shore up the budget. That's very important. We're also going to do what we call Reconciliation 3.0. What probably the things that angered me most in office is what we finally discovered because of the Doge and other things we've done is the waste and fraud that was allowed to be perpetrated in states like Minnesota, California, and elsewhere. This is where people sent in fake bills and the government actually paid them, not to hundreds of millions, but billions of dollars. As you know, my wife works with people like Emmett Oz, who's the head of this, leading us, as well as the vice president on this fraud crackdown. This is how we save money, and we need to send these people to jail. And for people who haven't heard, maybe it hasn't been popularized enough, but over 100 people in Minnesota have now been sentenced to prison for these activities that they've done now that we have come in to arrest these people, which the state of Minnesota failed to do. So that's the kind of thing we need to do. You would be amazed the amount of waste and fraud. It's not a myth, guys. It is happening, and we are finally prosecuting these criminals who are stealing taxpayer dollars from people who work so hard to pay those taxes every day.
Well, and again, it seems we overfund a lot of things that have good intentions and end up being abused. Can we start cutting back on that type of funding? And I've only got about 30 seconds for you, Mike.
Well, that's why, as you talked about earlier, we need more transparency. The good news is these are electronic funds that are sent to people. We can track the money, but some of these people are illegal immigrants, and they'll go back to places like in Minnesota from Somalia. We need more transparency. That's what Rick Scott and I are fighting for, along with Ashley Moody, every single day.
That's going to do it for our hour with the husband of the Surgeon General, Congressman Mike Haridopolos. Thank you. I appreciate it. We'll look forward to seeing you again soon, Mike.
Thanks, Bill. Have a great Memorial Day weekend.